The music industry is hiding the truth behind these reggae stars. What pushed them to the edge is a secret more disturbing than anyone admits. The final story is so heartbreaking, you will question everything you know about fame. You must watch until the end to understand the real tragedy they never escaped. David Emmanuel, known forever to the world as Smiley Culture, once carried laughter in his voice even when life had already begun folding darker shadows around him. His smile, the one that earned him his nickname while he was still a boy at Tulsa Hill School in South London, lasted longer on stages than it did in the quiet corridors of his private mind. His music rose from sound system clashes, microphone duels, the restless rhythm of London's Caribbean enclaves, and from a heritage shaped by a Jamaican father and a Guyanese mother. Yet it was behind closed doors, away from the scenes, away from the lights, where his story pressed into silence. There were moments when his influence was felt like a breeze moving through the rooms of British reggae culture. His name spoken alongside Saxon Studio International, Maxi Priest, Papa Levi, Tippa Irie. Then there were moments where only suspicion, misunderstanding, and unanswered questions filled the air. On March 15, 2011, while officers conducted a search inside his home in Worlingham, time fractured. A request to make tea, a kitchen, a knife, a wound to the heart, a life that ended not in applause, not in music, not in peace, but in something the public still cannot agree upon. Official voices wrote words of finality, but those who loved him continued to wonder why his story ended the way it did and whether the truth was ever allowed to breathe. Long before this moment of doubt and confusion, Slim Smith had already shown the world that brilliance does not always shield the heart. He was born Keith Smith in 1948 in West Kingston, where music was both refuge and expression. His voice could shatter grief and rebuild hope simultaneously. There was something aching and pleading in every note he released. The Victors Youth Band was the foundation, where he first started shaping that voice, winning competitions across Kingston, holding audiences in emotional suspension. Yet the applause did not soften the storms taking shape inside him. Slim Smith wore his feelings openly. He did not hide when pain surged, and when producers and the industry failed to handle him with the care his spirit needed, the world began watching him fade instead of flourish. Some turned away. Some whispered about the trembling behind his performances. Some saw the drinks and smoke he clung to like fragile shields. Bellevue Sanatorium became a waypoint in his journey, a space intended to heal, but unable to reach the wounds that ran deeper than the medical language assigned to them. In 1973, one night, the door to his parents' home was locked. A pane of glass, a fist, a cut that bled until morning, a severed artery. The silence that followed his death left a hole in reggae's earliest architecture. His voice remains, but the man who owned it is gone, leaving behind a legacy carved from beauty and anguish. Before either of those tragedies reached the world's ears, the life of Gene Adebambo unfolded quietly and unexpectedly. Born in Islington on July 1, 1962, to a Nigerian father and a Montserratian mother, she was not planning to become the voice of anything. She was studying to be a nurse, learning to comfort the injured, to tend to suffering, to help restore others. Her entry into music was almost accidental, a request to cover 2 songs for a label, and yet when she sang, the world listened. Paradise and the songs that followed created a tender, romantic pulse in Lovers Rock that carried her name far beyond what she had imagined. She owned her label, ADJ, created her own path, chose authenticity over spectacle. Then one day, she walked away from the world of tours, applause, and recordings, turning instead to healthcare again, this time as a dedicated health visitor in Bermondsey. She was not lost. She was simply choosing a quieter way to be alive. Years later, in 2008, she stood again before an audience at Brixton Academy, a sudden return that felt like a sunrise. But on January 15, 2009, she was found alone in her home in Leytonstone. She was only 46. The story does not reveal what thoughts filled her final moments, only that the world she once soothed with her voice mourned in confusion and disbelief. In another place, another generation, Delmark DeLue Spence grew into his talent with urgency and conviction. Born on June 18, 1981, in Kingston, Jamaica, he grew inside music itself. A father who played, a mother who sang their voices, built the first echoes inside him. He emerged in the early 2000s into a dance hall world that demanded more than skill. It required presence, individuality, courage. Deleuze delivered all of it. He performed not to create distance between himself and his audience, but to close the gap, to speak plainly of pain, love, confusion, and faith. Yet it was not the music industry or fame that became his hardest fight. It was the battle inside his own mind. He spoke about mental health openly, something many around him were not ready to confront. He told the world he struggled, hoping someone else would feel less alone. But on June 22, 2016, at the age of 34, he was found gone. The news hit like a sudden drop in temperature, something sharp, cold, irreversible. The love poured out after his passing did not return him. But it reminded everyone that even the strongest voices can tremble when the world stops listening closely enough. Far back in the Roots era, long before Deleuze, before the digital age, before amplified sound and streaming links, there was Cecil Nicky Thomas, born on May 30, 1944, in Portland Parish, Jamaica. He worked as a laborer first, hands built for weight and repetition, before music found him. Run, Mr. Nigel. Run was his breakthrough, shaped under producer Derek Harriott, a song that projected his voice into radios, into dance halls, into the rolling waves of Jamaican popular sound. Then came Come Home, another echo of longing and calling. His songs traveled to the United Kingdom, where Caribbean immigrants held tightly to rhythms that reminded them of home. Yet his life did not travel towards stability. Somewhere between the charts, the applause, and the quiet late hours, something inside him fractured. Around 1990, his story darkened. There are accounts, but no confirmed truths. Only that grief overwhelmed him, that heartbreak grew too heavy, and that he kicked the bucket by his own hand. The silence afterward swallowed clarity, leaving only memories of the warmth in his voice. The story of Junior Byles threads through faith, music, and torment, like a single line pulled too tightly. Born in Kingston, his early rise seemed unstoppable. He sang as if guided by something beyond himself. His hit Fade Away remains one of reggae's great prophecies, a warning sung softly yet firmly. But in 1975, when rumors and questions circulated about the disappearance of Emperor Haile Selassie, something shifted inside him. Junior Byles' belief in Selassie's divinity was not symbolic. It was the core of his existence. When that core was shaken, the foundation of his life trembled. Depression took hold. He attempted to kick the bucket by himself more than once. Bellevue Hospital became familiar ground. Music did not save him the way the world hoped it would. When he died on May 15, 2025, the grief expressed was not just for the loss of his voice, but for the long suffering the world had witnessed and never fully knew how to soothe. Across these lives, there is no single lesson, no singular narrative thread that ties them neatly together. Smiley Culture, Slim Smith, Gene Adebombo, Deleuze, Nicky Thomas, and Junior Byles did not share the same childhood, career path, or emotional landscape. They did not come from the same decade, the same cities, the same personal beliefs. Yet each one carried something that the public celebrated and consumed, a gift that seemed endless. When a person is praised for brilliance, the world forgets they still require gentleness. When a singer's voice becomes the comfort of millions, the world forgets that they themselves may be crying where no one can hear. What these stories share is the silent weight of expectation. Music becomes a mirror. People see themselves in the songs, but they rarely see the person who created them. The applause does not touch the pain. The interviews do not reveal the nights when breathing feels impossible. There is a loneliness that follows artists, especially in reggae, where so many carry the weight of cultural memory, ancestral wounds, spiritual hope, political resistance, and personal heartbreak all at once. Slim Smith's trembling spirit was not weak, it was overwhelming. Gene Adebombo did not vanish from music because she lacked love for it. She stepped back because life asked something different of her. Deleuze did not hide his struggle. He shouted it into the world, hoping someone else would feel less alone. Junior Biles collapsed under the collapse of belief itself. Nikki Thomas carried grief that the public never saw. Smiley culture died in a room where truth became smoke. These stories are not about defeat. They are about the urgency of compassion. The world is full of noise, voices, singing, laughing, crying, arguing, celebrating. But there are silences too long, heavy, waiting silences. Reggae has always carried the sound of survival, but survival is not guaranteed simply because someone sings about it. The world mourns these artists because their absence exposes the fragility of every human life behind fame. The applause fades. The voice grows tired. The spirit encounters battles no one else has prepared them to fight. And so the lesson remains. Listen to the music, yes, but listen also to the quiet between the notes. That is where the truth often hides. That is where pain breathes. That is where someone might still be saved. Tell me which of these stories affected you the most. Let me know if you were familiar with any of these artists before today. Share your thoughts on the pressures that artists face in the comments. I am reading every single one. Follow for more real stories about the hidden side of music.